Today I had a pleasure to speak with Jeremy Walters from Fort Mill, South Carolina. Jeremy is the chairman of the Libertarian Party and has recently filed a lawsuit regarding the election that took place recently in Charleston, South Carolina.
You know, there's going to be a lot of people listening to this that are not really familiar with South Carolina politics. I guess first off, maybe you can explain the ballot debacle of 2012. You know, what happened to the 250 candidates that were thrown off the ballot, and why after that whole debacle did the same mistake happen here in the last election in Charleston?
Okay, well, what happened in Charleston is a bit different than what happened in 2012. What happened in 2012 was there was a new law passed that nobody understood. And what it was the candidates had to file their economic interest statements, to the best of my knowledge, of course, is they had to file electronically, and they also had to file a hard copy of it. And that's what got them kicked off the ballot. My personal opinion on that law is that it was made by design to keep candidates off the ballot, so that candidates didn't understand it. And then you can go in, if you're an incumbent, you can go in and say, "Oh, my opponent didn't fill out their paperwork right. It's too bad," you know. So that's what happened in 2012. Is that they didn't file them on the correct ways. You had to file them two ways, and most people thought that you just had to file them electronically. But you had to file them both ways.
Correct.
Apparently, according to the law.
Right. But this case was different, and actually you filed a lawsuit September 26th that contends that the Democrat Marlin Kipson and also his Republican challenger Billy Schuman Jr. violated state law because they listed 2013 on their required income disclosure form, the economic of interest form, instead of 2012. And so you filed a lawsuit before the special election on October 1st. Now, it just so happens that the Alexandra Thornton, who's a Libertarian candidate, actually filled it out correctly. She actually is the only one that filled out the form correctly. So tell us about So tell us about the lawsuit that you filed.
Okay, well, what happened was I was watching the elections, and after 2012, I decided to watch candidates that put their names on the ballot. And I happened to be watching this election, and I noticed that, you know, it got all the way through the primaries, and a bunch of candidates got knocked off the ballot. And you would think that the Election Commission and everybody else involved would have it right. But the two candidates that made it all the way to the end, still, after everything that's gone on in the state of South Carolina with our elections, they still failed to fill it out correctly by missing the year. You have to fill out your economic interest statement when you're a candidate, not an incumbent, a candidate. You have to fill it out for the prior year. It's a very simple form. It doesn't actually mean that much, but in this case, it is a requirement for you to become a candidate in the state of South Carolina, and you have to fill it out properly. So that's what triggered the lawsuit. Was I called the South Carolina Election Commission, and it was the funniest thing. They gave me another number to call. They didn't realize who I was and that I went through my economic interest statement ordeal in 2012 because the Republicans tried to get me kicked off the ballot. So I worked very closely with Chris Whitmire and explained to him that mine is correct. And it came out at the end that mine was correct, and I was on the ballot in the 2012 general election. And the first time that they gave me they gave me a phone number, I immediately knew I was getting the runaround from the government. And I laughed, and I humored him, and I was like, "Give me the number." That number referred me to another number, which was a man who was not so polite to me. And he basically told me that I didn't know what I was talking about, and that I should just go away, and that nobody was breaking any laws, and we're not going to stop any election. And even if you did know what you're talking about, we're not going to stop an election. So I went about my business that afternoon, and then I thought, wait a minute, that man is wrong. I didn't know who the guy was, so I called the secretary back and I asked her, I said, it was in the Gressive building at the State House, is what I called. And I said, hey, that guy I talked to this morning, was he a senator or something? And she says, no, he's a lawyer for the Senate. And I just got so mad. I was like, oh my goodness, they sent me to their lawyer because they know something's wrong. Anytime this year.
What was the lawyer's name?
Lynn Odom.
Okay.
Okay, so
all right.
I told the secretary, I said, listen, you need to have Lynn call me back pretty quick because I'm about to file a lawsuit and put his name on it, and Lynn called me back right away. And he said the same thing to me again in the same tone of voice. Let me explain this to you. You don't have any idea what you're talking about. And him and I argued again. And then I said, you know what I'm going to do, Lynn? I said, I've been arguing with these people, and Chris Whitmire won't call me back. And I said, I'm just going to file a lawsuit. And he got mad at me. He's like, go ahead and do it. I don't care. Go right ahead. And I was like, okay, I'm going to. So I went and filed a lawsuit on September 26th. And on September 27th at 10 o'clock in the morning, Chris Whitmire called me back. And it was, he's so sincere. And I dealt with him on my economic interest statement. He really is a true gentleman. And he asked me, what was going on. And I explained everything to him. And when I explained to him that, if you take my economic interest statement that I filled out properly, I ran in 2012, it was filled out for 2011. I said, that is a correct filing. I said, these gentlemen have filed incorrectly. And that's when they said, oh my goodness, you're right. And then he went completely into, one minute he was talking to me, just as a regular guy. The next minute he said the official word from the spokesman of the South Carolina Election Commission is the election will go on pending a court order. And I said, thank you, and he also told me that, I studied all these laws and I figured out, I've already cracked this case. The fault gets blamed on the chairman of the Charleston County Democrats and the chairman of the Republican County Democrats, because they are the ones that certified their candidates to be put on the ballot. It is their responsibility at this moment right now to remove their candidates from the ballot. I politely asked them before I informed them, I knew they were going to say, just go away. We're not going to take our candidates off the ballot. And that's when I informed them that I was like, I thought you were going to say that. And that's why I filed a lawsuit, because it's wrong. In my eyes, this is the illegal election. And it makes me wonder how many other elections were illegal.
Right. And of course, now they actually passed a law, the Senate Bill 2, but that's not in effect, which basically takes the power out of the the Republican Party and the Democrat Party and hands it all over to the state, where people, if they want to become candidates, they just file through the Election Commission instead of their party. It actually hasn't gone into effect yet.
It was signed, from my best of my knowledge, it was signed by the governor, I think, on June 12th, 2013. But it's pending the Department of Justice go-ahead. South Carolina's one of 9 states that got to run it by the Department of by the feds before they can do anything with their election laws. I'm not completely familiar with it, but all I know is just so happens to be in my favor, because those 2 candidates that filed the October 1st election filed underneath the old law. So it's prime ground for a lawsuit.
So just to reiterate, Chris Whitmire, he is he runs the state election commission.
He is the spokesman for the South Carolina Election Commission. If you're going to deal with anything with the election commission, you're going to speak to Chris Whitmire. Well, you're going to speak to his secretaries for a while until he calls you back, but he always calls you back. Right.
And so he admits that this was that they were wrong. They did not file the paperwork correctly. They should have been. They should have been really kicked off the ballot like the other 250 candidates that were kicked out in 2012.
Correct.
And what is this? Where do we go from here? I mean, does that mean that the only legitimate person that filed all the paperwork correctly is the Libertarian candidate?
Alex Thornton, you're correct. It's a series of misfortunate events that ends up with Alex at the end, as the only candidate. And this is Alex is not the reason that I filed the suit. The reason that I filed the suit is to prove that the state of South Carolina can do whatever they want. It doesn't matter how much you argue with them or anything else. At the end of the day, they're just going to tell you, just go away. If you don't like it, file a lawsuit. And I just want the public to know that they don't even uphold their laws that they make. It's okay for them to break the law, but it's not okay for me to break the law. If I didn't fill that out right, the Republicans or the Democrats, anybody that was running against me, would have had me booted off the ballot within a 24-hour period of time. It's a known fact. So I actually learned it from the Republicans in my campaign. They tried to get me kicked off the ballot. And that's how I figured this out. I said, this thing's all set up to work in your favor if you're willing to go the distance with a lawsuit. Yeah.
So where do we go from here? This is, you filed the lawsuit. Where's the next steps as far as this lawsuit's concerned? Can they, because the Democrat actually won, if this lawsuit, if you win this lawsuit, are they going to kick him out of office?
How does this work? That's how it'll work, to the best of my knowledge. I'm not a lawyer, so I really honestly don't know how the whole thing goes. But if I come back with a court order that says you have been removed from the ballot, that means that you were not even on the ballot. So how can you be a senator? You'll have to be decertified and moved out of the State House, and we'll have to move Alex Thornton in for a brief period of time until the next election.
Really? Okay.
According to the law, I mean, who knows what they'll really do, but according to the law, that would be it right there. She's the only candidate legally on the ballot.
So what if he sponsors a bill and it passes, that everything that, the votes that goes on, will that be...
Right. The way I look at it is, what if he nominates a judge, and that judge gives you a DWI and convicts you for DWI? Is that DWI really valid? That's my question.
Right.
But I'm sure we'll find that out, Josh, in a short period of time here.
Now in the lawsuit, this is supposed to be determined by a jury, not a judge.
I requested for a trial by a jury for one reason and for one reason only, because I'm doing the judge a favor. That judge is going to have to rule on the current law. And the only thing that he can do to save himself from going to appeals, perhaps even federal appeals, is abide by the law, which means that would bring a third party to the state of South Carolina, the Libertarian Party. No longer will there be two parties. And you have to understand this. This will bring the Libertarian Party, Alex herself, and hopefully me in 2014, will be the minority party of the state of South Carolina. A lot of people don't understand what that means, but the minority party is in charge of a lot of things, such as committees and stuff like that. Okay? So really, technically, if a third party came to the state of South Carolina and you had, I don't know, what is the House Judiciary Committee before a bill hits the floor, you got 9 people on it. You got 4 Democrats, you got 4 Republicans, and 1 Libertarian. The 4 Democrats vote no. The 4 Republicans vote yes. Everybody turns to Alex at the end of the table and goes, what are you going to do? It'll disrupt South Carolina's politics, perhaps forever. Alex Thornton, if we win this case, will be the first Libertarian in the history of the state of South Carolina in their state house. So, it will change the state. And perhaps, blaze the trail for other Libertarian candidates to come into the state and win state house seats.
Yeah, for me as a citizen, a South Carolina citizen, it's just amazing. You're right. It's like they pick and choose what laws they want to follow.
Yeah, and that's what upset me the most. I wrote the lawsuit myself. I'm a pro se litigant. I'm a non-lawyer that will file suit on anybody. I've been doing it for over 15 years of my life.
Mm-hmm.
I study law, and I understand it. And then I get in arguments about it, and this is what happened is I began to argue with the state of South Carolina, the powers that be, the people who were in charge of our elections. And they told me that law, that they didn't break the law, and they did, Josh. They did break the law. I wouldn't put my name on the line and waste my time if I thought I was wrong. The South Carolina Election Commission already admitted it. He is my witness number one, right there. And I really honestly think that the citizens of the state. That's why I call it a trial by jury, because the jury is made up of registered voters. And I want the registered voters of the state of South Carolina to know what happens in their election. This is what happens. People think that they have no control whatsoever over an election. You have all the control over an election. You can stop an election, file a lawsuit, maybe a couple newspaper stories, and the next thing you know, here we are.
Well, listen, I tell you what, I think is a really interesting story, and I think people, no matter what party you're affiliated with, the bottom line is, you're right. These politicians, write the laws, they make up the laws, yet it's just hypocritical that they just pick and choose which laws they want to follow. I mean,
it doesn't pertain to them,
right?
And they're so arrogant that they think, well, what are you going to do? Well, I'm sorry, what am I going to do? I've been studying law for 15 years of my life and writing court papers. I'm going to file a lawsuit is what I'm going to do. I have no choice. They force you into litigation. Just so they'll, so what? So they'll uphold their own law that they wrote and the governor signed. If you don't like the laws, change them. That's what I did. I changed the child custody laws of the state of South Carolina in 2012 with the help of a lot of really good people. And our main opposition was, are you ready? The South Carolina Bar Association. So basically, lawyers in the state of South Carolina are not very fond of me. So I'm on my own with this one. I know it.
Well, listen,
it's okay.
Yeah. Well, hey, I appreciate your fortitude and your willingness to challenge the most powerful people in the state. And I will ask you, keep us up to date with this lawsuit, and just let us know how it goes.
All right, I really appreciate your time.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for doing this for me.
No problem, Jeremy. You take care.